Hi, my name is Abby Goslin, you can call me Dr. Goslin. I'm the professor for this class, Philosophy of Mental Health. What I want to do in this video is introduce myself so you can see what I look like and get to know me a little bit, and introduce the class. So if we were meeting in person today, we would spend about half the class going over the syllabus and the other half of the class getting to know each other and learning each other's names. But we are not meeting in person today. So I wanted to do the syllabus introduction in this recording, and on Thursday we'll spend some time getting to know each other, and I want to try to learn your names as quickly as possible. So I want to start with just talking about how we use the world-class website. So I'm going to share my screen so we can look at that together. And I will show you the different parts that I use. Okay, so here is the home site for the Philosophy of Mental Health World Class site. And so I made an announcement yesterday, so announcements are over here. And I used put some stuff on the contents page. So we have the syllabus over here. You can download it or look at it. The readings are in two places. One of these places is over here. I have all the readings collected in order that you will be reading them. I have these documents called Homework at a Glance. If you want to look at all the homework prompts ahead of time or all at once, you can look at these documents. Otherwise, you can see them one at a time when they open up in the assignments page. But this way you can look at them ahead of time if you want to. The projects are also both here and in the assignments page, but if you want to look at those ahead of time, you can look at those here. And then if I have any notes and handouts, which I do for a couple of classes, I put them over here. And so we will use that for a couple of classes. So that's the contents page. And then the assignments are under the assignments rubric here. And so the assignments are all dated by their due date, and they're all in order. And so you get homework for each class, and then when you have projects, they have their due date as well. And so it's all in order. I want to look at today's homework, and I have the teacher page, and it looks different from your page as a student page. So I'm going to go into it and it will look a little bit different for you, but here's what it looks like for me. So for homework for Thursday, I want you to read the article called What is a Mental or Psychiatric Disorder from DSM-4 to DSM-5. And the reading is attached here and it's also in that other place on the contents page. So I want you to read that article and then look up online, or you can go to the library and find some of the diagnostic and statistical manual criteria. So DSM stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and that is the book that has all of the diagnoses for mental disorders that psychiatrists can give. And so it's just a compendium of all the mental disorders and their criteria and definitions. DSM-5 is the most recent one. It was created in, I believe, 2013, and that's the one that's currently used. And this article comes from when they were in the process of changing DSM-4 and revising it to DSM-5. So you might not have access to DSM-5 because they want you to pay for it online, but you can definitely look up the DSM-4 criteria and that will be sufficient. You can also consult the International Classification of Diseases, which is developed by the World Health Organization. It's very similar to the DSM. It's just an international compendium instead of a national one. And so if you would rather look at the ICD, you can. If you have no idea where to start, choose a few mental disorders that you're particularly curious about and check those out. Also try to find mental disorders that you may never have heard of before. Looking at a table of contents page can help you with that. And then for your reading response, I want you to reflect on what your initial reactions are to the ways in which the DSM or ICD classifies mental disorders. What do you like or dislike about it so far? Think about the proposals made in the article and particularly about the importance that these authors think functioning and dysfunction should play in our understanding of what a mental disorder is. Do you agree with them on this or on other suggestions they may explain? Your response should be at least 2 paragraphs. Please make sure you engage with specific ideas from the reading and cite page numbers where you get specific information. Quote and explain at least 3 passages from the reading to help you answer the prompt. And quoting and explaining 3 passages is a requirement for every assignment that you do. And so you should get in the habit of doing that regularly to get full credit for the homework assignments. So this is what we're doing for Thursday. And on Thursday, we will talk about the DSM and talk about the proposals made in terms of revising the DSM. So that is the homework. The other part of World Class that I use is the grades. And so I have it set up so that you can see what your grade is for the class at any time. World Class automatically calculates that for you. It looks different for me than you, so I'm not going to go into that to show you it, but you can look at it on your own. And so that's the part of World Class that I use. The home, obviously, the contents, the assignments, and the grades. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my world class screen, and now I want to talk about the syllabus. So I'm going to share my screen to get into the syllabus for us. And so, whoops. Okay, so this class is Philosophy of Mental Health. It is an RCC class. It meets the requirement for the diversity part of the integrative core. My name is Abigail Goslin, as I said. My office is Carroll Hall 230B. I'm on the 2nd floor of Carroll Hall in between education and communications. I'm a philosopher and I'm in the philosophy section. There's my telephone number. My office phone often does not work, so that is not the best way to get a hold of me. The best way to get a hold of me is my email. I check it constantly throughout the day, so it really is the best way. Office hours this semester, I have office hours on Monday from 10 to 12 over Zoom and Tuesday 12:15 to 2:15 in my office. I can meet with you on other days and times if we make an appointment and set that up together. If you meet with me over Zoom, you have to let me know ahead of time so I can send you the Zoom link for the meeting, including if you meet with me on that Monday. But you could email me Monday morning and I will get the email and be able to send you the link and meet with you by 10. So that's not a problem. The class meets Tuesday, Thursday, 11 to 12:15 in Loyola 14. So I'll read the course overview. In this course, we will do a transdisciplinary analysis of what constitutes mental disorders and how we can best take care of people who have them by drawing on texts from philosophy, psychology, sociology, and history. This course treats mental health status as a way that people are socially situated with respect to others, thus constituting a relation of power. In examining the ways in which mental health status situates a person and the ways in which this intersects with other ways that people are socially located, including gender and race, this course fits the diversity area of the integrative core. We'll begin by considering what a mental disorder is and how it differs from mental health. We'll look at the diagnostic and statistical manual definition of a mental disorder and the influence of cultural factors on our understanding of mental disorders, with the goal of complicating our own understandings of disorder. Then we will examine the role that stigma plays in how people view mental disorders, as well as the role that mental disorders play in constituting people's identity. This will lead us to examine cultural factors, including gender and race, that contribute to causing specific mental disorders among certain groups of people and that influence the interpretation of certain behaviors and experiences as pathological. We will examine ways that people with mental illness are treated in social institutions, especially the criminal justice system. Next, we will consider how society should take care of people with mental disorders and investigate the kinds of social capital that would enable people to function better in society. Finally, we'll brainstorm social and legal policies that would serve the interests of people with mental disorders. So student learning outcomes, I have a bunch of these. By the end of the class, you'll be able to explain what makes a mental disorder a mental disorder. This requires being able to explain how a mental disorder differs from mental health, what makes an illness mental as opposed to physical, and what makes a condition medically or psychologically pathological, an illness, as opposed to, say, mere deviation from a norm. You'll develop a learning disposition in which you listen deeply and without judgment to people's stories about their own experience. Such a listening disposition enables you to be more intentional in how you interact with others. In the context of this course, this listening disposition will enable you to develop some understanding of what experiences with mental disorder are like and to use this understanding to address stigma. You'll explain how having a mental disorder intersects with other ways that one is socially situated, such as with respect to gender, race, class, age, and ethnicity. This involves identifying relevant social factors that contribute to causing or diagnosing a given disorder in certain groups of people. This also involves understanding how social factors condition how the disorder is experienced, how it's diagnosed, treated medically and psychologically, treated socially, regarded by oneself, etc. You will understand and assess the ways that people with mental illness are treated in social institutions such as the criminal justice system, and you'll identify social capital and develop policy proposals that enable people with mental disorders to function better in society and be treated more justly. I am not going to read through the Regis College Core Philosophy Statement and University Outcomes, but you are welcome to read through those. Let's talk about books. So reading is essential for this course. You're expected to do every reading assignment, and class discussions and activities are designed assuming that you've done the required reading. While I do not expect you to understand everything that you read, I do expect you to make your best effort. In class, we'll work together to try to figure out what the author is saying so we can evaluate the material. As this involves consulting the text frequently, you're expected to bring the relevant text to class every day. So I have two required books for this class that we will read half or more of. One is Crazy, A Father's Search Through America's Mental Health Madness. We will read that entire book by Pete Early. And then the other one is Crazy Like Us, The Globalization of the American Psyche. We will read half of that by Ethan Waters. Both of these books are written by journalists, so they're very easy to understand, easy to follow. So you should have no problem understanding them. But we do have other units where we will be reading articles that come from different disciplines, including philosophy. And some of those articles are a little bit harder. And so I just expect you to do your best with them, and we'll talk about them in class and make sure you understand them. And those are available on the World Class website, as I showed you. Okay, you can read about full access. General expectations. So you're responsible for checking your email regularly. Announcements about the class will be made over email and in the announcement section of our World Class site. The primary way that I will contact you if I need to is through your Regis email, and the primary way you should contact me is through my email. If or when we meet over Zoom. Occasionally, we may need to meet over Zoom, such as during inclement weather. If this happens, I will send an email announcing the change. Zoom meetings are created through World Class and can be accessed through the World Class portal. You must log into World Class with your Regis credentials using your Regis email in order to be able to access the class. Alternately, you may log into Zoom with your Regis credentials and under Join Meeting put the correct meeting number. You're expected to attend class even if we are meeting over Zoom. It's still required. In order to get participation credit for that day, you must have your microphone available and your camera on at all times during class so you can interact with your classmates. If you do not keep your camera on throughout the class, you do not get participation points for that day. I hope that we don't have to meet over Zoom, but we will see. If we have a snow day where Regis cancels class, like for today, we will not meet at all. I may do something like this where I send you a video or do some other kind of activity online, but it will not be over Zoom. However, if Regis does not cancel, but the weather makes it so I'm not able to drive to campus, or I have some other kind of emergency that I have to deal with, I may have to change class so that we meet over Zoom. In which case, I would, like I said, I would send you an email as soon as possible and put it on the announcements part of World Class. So always check your email, especially on days where weather is kind of iffy, just so that you know what we're doing for class. Much of the work that we do in class will be small group discussions with large group shareouts. Everyone is expected to participate in both small group discussions and large group shareouts. So what you would do is you'd be meeting with a group of like 3 or 4 other students, and you'd have a discussion question, which I put on the projector in class, and you talk about it for a few minutes. And then after everyone talks about it, then we come together as a large group, and I call on one person from each small group to summarize what your small group talked about. And we do this for several discussion questions each class period, so everyone will participate in a large group share out at some point during that class. So all you're doing is summarizing what your group talked about when you do that. So that's how we will structure each day in class. And then I do not expect you to understand everything that you read for the class, but I do expect you to try. Give your best effort and talk to me if you're feeling lost or overwhelmed in the class. Okay, now we have class policy statements and information. For assignment submission policy, for this class, all assignments must be turned in by being uploaded to the appropriate folder in the class website on World Class, as I showed you. Each assignment will be given a grade over World Class. All assignments must be turned in on time. If your assignment is even a minute after class starts, it will be marked as late. And if you have a late assignment, you will lose points from it, as I will talk about in just a couple minutes. So please make sure your assignments are on time. Make sure you give yourself enough time to complete your assignment and post it before class. Class decorum policy. When you attend class in person, please be considerate of your fellow classmates and your instructor. Arrive on time and stay for the entire class period, but when this is impossible, please enter or leave quietly. In a discussion-based class like this, lack of full participation is highly distracting and disruptive. Do not read materials not directly relevant to the class, and do not carry on conversations that are off topic. Students who are distracting themselves and or others, and especially me, will be called upon and asked to stop their distraction and possibly asked to leave. Please only use electronic devices such as cell phones or laptops for class-related purposes. If you are texting in class, I will ask you to put your phone away in class publicly. And if you are using your computer in a way that is not class-related, I will also ask you to please stop doing that. If you are using your cell phone or your laptop in ways that are not directly class related, you don't get any participation points for that day. So don't distract yourself with your electronic devices. And then I talked about what happens if we attend class over Zoom, but similar courtesy kinds of things. Please come on time so we can get class started and break up into the groups the way we need to. And please stay for the whole class and try to be as free of distractions as you can. And obviously, as I said, make sure you have your microphone accessible and your camera on at all times. Okay, academic honor code. All members of the Regis University community exhibit the qualities of honesty, loyalty, and trustworthiness in all academic activities, holding themselves and each other accountable for the integrity of the learning community. Regis University students are committed to the highest standards of academic integrity and assume full and complete responsibility for maintaining those standards in the academic environment. So academic integrity violations, I have a zero tolerance policy. And if you have an academic integrity violation, I fail you for the class and I don't want you to show up to the class again. Zero tolerance. And if you have multiple of these on your record, you can get expelled from this university. Academic integrity violations include cheating, falsification, fabrication, submitting the same paper to different classes, plagiarism, which includes both copying and paraphrasing without proper citation, abusing academic materials such as copying my notes into a paper, and using artificial intelligence to write a paper that is supposed to be in your own words. Artificial intelligence does have some good uses. For instance, you could use it to help you generate a project topic, but it is not meant to be used in an academic environment to substitute for writing in your own words. When you have assignments, you're expected to write them in your own words because it's your mind doing the thinking on them. And if you are using artificial intelligence for that, that counts as an academic integrity violation because it's a form of cheating. And so if you use artificial intelligence in this way, you will fail the class. Okay, learning support policy. If you have a documented disability requiring academic adjustments, please contact Disability Services with that information there. And they will figure out what the appropriate accommodations are. Please do that as early in the semester as possible so I know what kind of accommodations I need to provide. We don't have tests in this class, so you won't need to use those kinds of accommodations, but we do have homework and projects, so different accommodations might be relevant. And sometimes I have students who need someone to take notes for them. And if that happens, I will ask for a volunteer to take those notes and submit them, and you get compensation for that. So please be willing to do that if I ask for that. Incomplete policy, this basically says that in order to get an incomplete, you have to have done all of the work for the class up until the end of the semester, and something unforeseen happens, such as getting sick, that makes it so you can't finish the class. If you have not been turning in your work throughout the semester, you cannot get an incomplete. So it's really just for those unforeseen last minute kinds of events. Academic support. The Learning Commons offers academic support to all Regis students through our Writing Center, tutoring, and academic success workshops. And there's some information about them. I strongly recommend that you use the Writing Center for this class, bringing drafts to them to have someone else look at them and help you with revising them. It's really helpful to use the Writing Center to work on drafts. So I strongly recommend that. Counseling resources during the semester. If you find that life stressors are interfering with your academic or personal success, consider contacting the Office of Counseling and Personal Development. If you are a full-time student, you can use that with no charge to you. And there's contact information. Diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. At Regis University, the term diversity affirms our Jesuit commitment to build an inclusive community that values the dignity and contributions of all our members. We strive to shape a learning environment characterized by the Jesuit traditions of mutual respect and the pursuit of social justice, recognizing that our various identities and experiences, including but not limited to age, gender, race, ethnicity, class, disability, sexual orientation, religion, and other forms of human difference, contribute to the richness and vitality of our Regis community and those we are connected to locally, nationally, and globally. In accordance with our Jesuit Catholic mission, we commit ourselves to shaping an atmosphere where the human rights of every individual are respected. We desire that same commitment to be instilled in each member of our community and demonstrated through our words and actions. Should an individual ever feel as though these values are not being upheld, you can contact the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusive Excellence. The non-discrimination, sexual misconduct, and retaliation policy. This prohibits university community members from discrimination and harassment on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, including sexual harassment, sexual violence, sexual assault, sexual exploitation, intimate partner violence, or stalking. Gender, disability, age, religion, veteran status, marital status, pregnancy, parental status, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, genetic information, or any other legally protected status in any of its policies, programs, and missions or activities. And I need you to know that I am what is called a responsible employee, or what used to be called a mandatory reporter, where I am legally obligated that if you share that you have been harassed or discriminated in one of these ways that falls under this policy, I have a legal obligation to bring that to the Title IX office. And the Title IX coordinator. So I just need you to know I'm not a confidential person with that. It's a legal obligation. If you have any issues that fall under this policy, you can contact the Title IX coordinator with these resources here. The Indigenous Lands Acknowledgement. Regis University recognizes that Indigenous peoples are the original stewards of the land we stand on today. We respectfully acknowledge that this land is the traditional homeland and buffalo hunting grounds of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations. We also recognize the 48 tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. As a Jesuit university, Regis is engaged in a mission of walking with those communities who have been excluded. Accordingly, it is important that we acknowledge that our presence on this land is due to the forced displacement of Indigenous peoples from their ancestral lands. It is only in publicly recognizing this historical reality that we are able to embrace, in the present, our moral and intellectual responsibility and to affirm our commitment to a faith that does justice. In order to honor the original inhabitants of this land and to enter into right relationship with their descendants, Regis will continuously reimagine this acknowledgement, act on our responsibilities to the common good, and respectfully collaborate with and support members of local Indigenous communities. Electronic and audio recording policy. I don't have a problem if you want to record the class, but I do ask you to let me know ahead of time. I think that is just common courtesy to let me know, so please do that. Preferred name policy, I will call you whatever name you want me to, just tell me. University-sponsored absences policy. So university-sponsored absences, such as for varsity athletics, debate, dance team, or scholarly conferences or presentation are considered excused absences. The only other excused absence I give is if you are ill and you have a doctor's note. All other absences are unexcused. But if you have one of these types of absences, I need you to email me ahead of time so that I know that and I can mark it in my participation log. Policy for class interruptions, cancellations. As I said before, sometimes we could have extenuating circumstances, whether caused by Mother Nature or power or other outages, or me having to deal with some kind of unforeseen emergency, and that could make it so we can't do in-person classes. If Regis is still open, we will hold class over Zoom in this kind of situation. And as I said, I will email you ahead of time as soon as I know. So I just talked about that information. Key dates, the deadline for ad drop is January 23, which is next week. The date for midterm grades are due is March 14, and the deadline for withdrawal is April 7. So your final grade is based on participation in class discussion and activities, reading response papers, and 4 projects. So you will have regular homework assignments in which you practice reading and writing skills such as identifying meaningful passages, isolating a thesis, summarizing an author's view, and forming your own argument. You will be expected to share these through class participation. There are 2 main purposes of these assignments. The first is to help focus your reading and organize your thoughts about the topic so you better understand what you read, so you read more effectively and productively. The second purpose is to ensure that you come to class prepared to discuss the reading so we can talk about where the reading takes us and not simply review or reiterate it. So homework is essential. I grade it on a 100-point scale. It used to be a 2-point scale, but World Class deals with 100 points better. So I just translated it into that. So 100 points is proficient. You answered the prompt adequately with detail and thoughtfulness. You cited places in the text where you found ideas, and you supported your answer with 3 quotes from the text, which you explain. So for all assignments, you have to engage with the text by finding 3 passages that you quote and explain as part of your homework and in your projects as well. So you need to do that in order to be eligible for the full points. 80 points is approaching proficiency. You answered part of the prompt, but not thoroughly or adequately, or your answer while demonstrating some effort was only partially correct. You did not cite or quote adequately. You can receive less than 80 points depending on how incomplete or late the assignment is. If your assignment is late, I automatically take off 20 points, so the most you could get would be 80 points. And then 0 points is not proficient. You did not meet the requirements of the prompt or your answer was incorrect. If I can't tell that you did the reading based on your response, you do not get any credit for the response. So that is the point system that I use. I'm not a hard grader for homework, so most people get 100 points most of the time. I largely grade on effort. I want to see that you're putting in the effort and you're engaging with the text and really working with it. I don't accept homework that is later than 2 weeks old under any circumstance. Projects. You have 4 projects. So in the research project, you'll do outside research on a specific mental disorder of your choice and explain its DSM criteria. That's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual that we talked about earlier. The mental distress it causes, its biological markers, and what distinguishes it from other similar disorders. You will also do a brief analysis of how this mental disorder differs from a state of mental health, what makes the disorder mental as opposed to physical, and what makes the condition pathological as opposed to, say, mere deviance from a norm. You will write a brief summary of this information and analysis and present it to the class so we can all learn from each other about the different mental disorders. Presenting and attending others' presentations is required for a passing grade. Listening project. You will participate in a listening session in which small groups of students meet with individuals who have mental illnesses. You will prepare for these listening sessions by learning how to listen deeply and without judgment to people's stories about their own experience. We will spend class time preparing for the listening sessions and debriefing afterwards. You will write homework assignments summarizing and reflecting on the stories that you hear. Memoir project. You will read a memoir in order to gain a different kind of firsthand account of experience of mental disorder and write a paper that analyzes this account according to themes discussed in this unit of the class. You will bring the listening disposition that you began developing with the listening project to the way that you read the memoir. In your analysis of the memoir, you'll examine the roles of gender, race, and other identity markers in constructing the author's experience with their illness, including their diagnosis, treatment, day-to-day experience, and how others regard them. In addition, you'll do some analysis of the relevant social factors that contribute to causing the disorder. And then the policy project, you will choose a relevant social or legal problem with how society takes care of people of mental disorders and work in groups to do research on how the basic issue is, on how the issue has been addressed and determine how it should be addressed. Relevant social problems include problems with institutionalization in group homes, worries about potential harms such as violence or discomfort caused by people with mental disorders living in the community, homelessness, incarceration, other aspects of the criminal justice system, access to psychiatric healthcare services, appropriate disability accommodations, and acquiring sufficient social capital. Groups will develop slideshow presentations and present their proposals to the class. Presenting and attending other presentations is required for passing grade, and that will occur during the final exam period. Discussion and participation. This course is a discussion-based class in which we try to understand the material and evaluate it together. It should be a place where it is safe to think out loud and try out ideas without necessarily being wedded to them. While you're not expected to understand everything you read, you are expected to make your best effort and come to class prepared to engage. Remember that no question is dumb, and asking good questions is good participation. Remember also that good participation means both personally participating and giving others opportunities to participate, including asking your peers what they think. And the way I have the class structured, we don't tend to have a dynamic where the same people always talk, because we do that small group discussion and the large group share out where I call on one person from each group to share what their small group talked about, and I call on everyone at least once in a class period, and so participation in class tends to be very even. And I'll let you read more about what that looks like and why I do that on your own, if this is the section in the syllabus. Okay. Um, and then some norms for participation would be: arrive with questions about the reading, allow people immersed in the community to speak on their own behalf, recognize that not all members of a community have the same experience, use I statements, allow for silence to include others, enter conversations with an open mind and come with curiosity, not judgment. If a reading troubles you, reach out to me for support. What is said here stays here, and refer to other students by their names. Participation is required, and I do grade it after every class. I put it in my Excel spreadsheet, and then every 2 weeks I give you a grade over world class. And I use a 100-point system, same as homework. 100 points is you actively participated in class, contributing to class discussion, and participating in group activities. 80 points is you passively participated in class, listening attentively and perhaps taking notes, but not contributing or participating actively. So for instance, if you are in the small group and you are not contributing to that discussion, you are just sitting there silently, the most you could get is 80 points. You might even get 0 points if you're really doing nothing for the day. 0 points would be you slept, distracted yourself and or others, used electronic devices in ways that were not approved for classroom use, or really literally did nothing during class. And I give, again, I'm not a hard grader on this, so most people get 100 points most of the time, but I do want to see that you are participating actively in class. Attendance policy: if you need to miss 1 or 2 days of class due to compelling reasons, make sure you do not miss any others, especially for less important reasons. Missing a day of class will result in an automatic loss of participation points for that day. I only excuse absences for university-sponsored events, such as sports or debate, for religious holidays, or for illness with a doctor's note. More than 2 unexcused absences will result in lowering your final grade. If I get worried about your absence or performance, I will contact you to check in with you, and you are always welcome to contact me about anything. So the final grade is composed of the following parts. So attendance and participation is 35%. The reading response papers or homework assignments are also 35%. And then the projects are a total of 30% or 10% each. The course schedule will start with what is a mental disorder and who gets diagnosed with mental disorders. And I went over the homework that's due for Thursday. And so that's this here. And then we will talk about some specific mental disorders and how we should understand them both as mental and as a disorder. And then we'll talk about how different mental disorders correlate with gender and race also. Then you'll have your research project where we'll learn about different mental disorders. Then how do we regard people with mental disorders and why do we stigmatize many mental disorders? And we will learn about stigma and how that impacts people. And we'll learn about how people in other countries are viewed with different mental disorders and how that compares to how they're viewed in the US. We will have a listening project during that unit. Um, then you have your memoir project that you'll be working on during those weeks, and that will be due right after the spring break. And then our last unit is how are people with severe mental illness treated by society? And we will especially focus on the criminal justice system, but we will also talk about homelessness and other social issues. Um, and then we'll also talk about how should we take care of people who have mental disorders, and that will lead into the policy project that I talked about, and the presentations for that will be the final exam period. So that is the syllabus. I know that that is a lot of information. I would have taken about half the class going through that if we were meeting in person today, but this way you got to experience it differently on video. So if you have any questions about the syllabus, please feel free to ask me in class on Thursday or shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. On Thursday, we're going to spend some time getting to know each other, and I really want to learn your names as soon as I can. And we will dive right in and talk about the diagnostic and statistical manual and definitions of mental disorders. And I went over the homework with you, so I expect you to do that ahead of time so you come ready to talk about that. So that will be for Thursday. So thank you for listening to this, and I look forward to meeting you on Thursday. Goodbye.